Hello everyone, welcome to Virgicos. Myself Dr. Manam Ramanjanelu. I am from Division of Physics, Department of Science and Humanities, Vignan's Foundation for Science, Technology and Research. In this video, I will be discussing about nanomaterials. By the end of this video, you will be able to understand what is a nanomaterial, different properties of nanomaterial, synthesis techniques of nanomaterial, and various applications of nanomaterial. Let's start. First of all, let's discuss about what is a nano. Nano means 10 power minus 9 simply. A nanometer means 10 power minus 9 meters. That means if you take a 1 meter scale and make it 10 power 9 equal parts, out of that one part is called 1 nanometer. That means it's a very small. Let's see how small this nanometer compared to some known things. As you can see in the picture, a red ant, which is the sizes of the order of 5 millimeter, which we can see with our eyes. There is a dust mite which has a size of 200 microns. Probably we will not see this with our eyes. We require a high resolution electron microscope. And the difference between the millimeter and micrometer is exactly 1000 times smaller than the millimeter. Now, you can see another picture, human hair. The size of the human hair is of the order of 50 to 120 micrometers. And a fly ash has a 10 to 20 micrometers. You can see another picture, red blood cell. The size of the red blood cells is 2 to 5 micrometers. When you compare red blood cell size compared to red ant, it is exactly 1000 times smaller than the red ant size. That means the red blood cells are very smaller and their size is 1000 times smaller compared to red ant cells. Now, when you see a DNA molecule, it has a size of the order of 2 to 2.5 nanometers. That means when you compare a DNA molecule to red blood cell, it has 1000 times smaller than the red blood cell. And also when you compare DNA molecule with respect to a small ant, it is 10 power 6 times smaller than red ant. That is the order we are talking. And when you see a carbon nanotube, the carbon nanotubes has a diameter of the order of 1 to 1.3 nanometers. And the carbon buckyball has a diameter of 1 nanometer. So, when you compare the carbon buckyball with respect to red ant, the size of the buckyball is 10 power 6 times smaller than the red ant. When we talk about the nanomaterial, we are talking about such a small size. And we are discussing the properties in that small size. Now, let's see, the nanomaterial means any material whose dimensions are in between 1 to 100 nanometers is said to be nanomaterial. That means any material we take, the dimensions at least in one dimension, in the range from 1 to 100 nanometers. Then we can say that material is nanomaterial. As you can see in the picture, this picture is a colorized scanning electron microscopic images of different nanomaterials. You can see the nanowires, where the diameter of the nanowires is of the order of 10 to 15 nanometers. But the length can be even microns. Still we can say those wires are nanowires. We can also see the ribbons. The thickness of the ribbon is of the order of 10 to 15 nanometers. But the length might be even 1 to 2 microns. Still, we call these ribbons as nano ribbons. We can also see various examples, nano ring, nano triads, etc. We can see many other nano structures, nano walls, nano flowers, nano rods, etc. At least in all these materials, at least one dimension is in the range of 1 to 100 nanometers. So all these materials we can call it as a nanomaterial. So how do we get the nanomaterials? Nanomaterials, we get it in this way. We take a big chunk of material, cut into pieces, again make into another pieces, another, and so on. The smallest pieces the dimensions of the small pieces of the order of 1 to 100 nanometers. Those materials are called nanomaterials. These nanomaterials comes from bulk material and you make into a small material. Now, why we are making these small materials? What is the use? When you have a material in the nano form, it has entirely different properties compared to its bulk form. That means for the same material, when you have a bulk material, when it is in the nanomaterial, we have a different properties. So, the properties like a melting point, boiling point, band gap, optical properties, electrical properties, thermal properties, magnetic properties, fluorescence properties, chemical reactivity, all these will be affected by the nanomaterials. That means all these are different from their bulk composition. And also, when we make the material from bulk to nano, the crystal structure may also change with respect to size of the particle. Let's see how the melting and boiling point changes with respect to nanomaterial. As you can see in the picture, it is a diatomic molecule. Each atom is bonded with the other atom with the 4 bonds. This model is a spring model we have shown here. That means if you wanted to remove one atom completely from the structure, we need to give energy 4 times that of the bond energy of the crystal. Then only the atom can be removed. Whereas in the case of nanomaterial, you can see nanomaterial means very less number of atoms are there because you have cut it to very small pieces. So the number of atoms itself is very less. So all the atoms will not have a similar bonding, similar number of bonds compared to the bulk material. So the amount of energy required to break the same molecule in the case of nano is very less compared to in the case of bulk material. So that means the melting and boiling points is completely different compared to their bulk materials. In the case of nanomaterials, we have a less energy required, so we have a less boiling and melting points. But in the case of bulk material, we may have to require higher energy, so boiling and melting points will be a bit higher compared to nanomaterials. Similarly, we can also see band gap changes. As you can see in the picture, for a bulk material, valency band and conduction band. The difference between the valency band and conduction band is called band gap. Now, what we are doing, the bulk material we are cutting into pieces and making it into a nanoparticle. In the nanoparticle, we have, let's consider only 4 atoms. Now, you can see in the nanoparticle corresponding band diagram, only 4 energy levels are there in the valency band and 4 energy levels are there in the conduction band. Now, if you calculate the band gap energy, that is the difference between the valency band and the conduction band, which is larger compared to bulk. That means when you change the material from bulk material to nanomaterial, the band gap is increasing. It's not just limited to band gap changes when you go from bulk material to nanomaterial. Let us consider if we want to excite the electrons from the valency band to conduction band in the case of nanomaterial. So now we require higher energetic photons to excite the electron from valency band to conduction band compared to the bulk material. That means the absorption properties of the nanomaterials are different compared to their bulk materials. It's not just only absorption of materials, but also emission. Now, when an electron is in the high energy band gap, in the conduction band, is de-exciting to valency band, it emits the photon. Now, if you see, the band gap in the case of nanomaterials is larger, so the emitting photon will be higher energetic. That means the photon which is emitting from the nanomaterial will be higher energy compared to that of the bulk material. So that means the luminescence properties are also going to be different in the case of nanomaterials. So, how these properties are appearing for the nanomaterials? There are 2 important principles behind the nanotechnology and nanoscience. Those are surface to volume ratio and quantum confinement. Let's see what is the surface to volume ratio and quantum confinement. Nanomaterial or any material, how much is the surface area that the particle have compared to its volume? Let's consider one example so you will understand. Let us consider a cube with the edge 1 centimeter second cube with edge 2 centimeters, and the third cube with edge 4 centimeters. Now, we can find the surface area of the first cube, second cube, third cube, and also volume of the first cube, second cube, third cube, so that we can find the surface to volume ratio. As you can see in the tabular form, the surface area of the first cube is 6 centimeters square, and the second cube is 24 centimeters square, and the third cube is 96 centimeters square. And the volume of the first cube is 1, second 8, and the third is 64 centimeter cube. Now the surface to volume ratio, if we calculate, for the 1 centimeter cube it is 6, second 3, and the third cube it is 1.5. That means you can clearly see when we have so many number of atoms, that means a large number of the cube is bigger, the surface to volume ratio is only 1.5. That means we have a larger surface, the larger surface is available for a nanoparticle. You can see for the smaller cube, the surface to volume ratio is 6. That means we have more surface area compared to its volume in the case of nanomaterials. So now, if you have a larger surface, this larger surface can interact with the different reactants and can have a more reacting power to the nanomaterials, so that they can dissolve quickly, they can react with other atoms or molecules very quickly because of higher surface area. Now, what is a quantum confinement? We can say quantum confinement can occur only when the particle size is of the order of the de Broglie wavelength of the electron. When we get the particle size such a smaller size, then the electrical and optical properties are going to be completely different compared to their bulk materials. Let's see the effects of the quantum confinement and surface to volume ratio with some examples. As you can see in the picture, this is a cadmium selenide nanoparticles with varying its size. That means a nanoparticle size. As you can see, as the particle size changing, the color of the liquid is also changing. For every different size of the particle, it has a different color. That means it is emitting different wavelength. That means its optical properties are completely different and are depending upon the size of the particles. Similarly, you can also see the gold nanoparticles. The gold nanoparticles, as the size is increasing or size is decreasing, we can see the color of the nanoparticles are also changing. Similarly, we can also have the similar effects in the case of silver nanoparticles. You can see the silver nanoparticles, again the size of the particles is changing, their color is changing, and also here you need to understand that the structure of the nanoparticles. As the structure is also changing, then the color is also changing. That means the properties are also changing. That means the properties in the nano regime is not just only the size dependent, but they are also depending upon the structure of the different nanostructures. So these are all because of the surface to volume ratio and quantum confinement effects. Now the question is how to make these nanomaterials. There are two ways to make the nanomaterials. The first approach is top-down approach and the second approach is bottom-up approach. The top-down approach means we take a chunk of bulk material and cut into pieces, and we take again all these pieces, cut into pieces, and so on. We make this we chop this until the particles dimensions is of the order of 1 to 100 nanometers. In this way, we can take a bulk material and transform that into a nanomaterial. In the case of bottom-up approach is an additive process. In this process, atoms and molecules are interacting chemically to form nanostructures. Examples for the top-down approach is ball milling, lithography, machining, erosion. These are some of the examples for the top-down approach. Bottom-up approach, solid-gel method, liquid-solid reactions, gas condensation reaction, chemical vapor condensation, laser ablation. These are some of the examples for the chemical vapor deposition techniques. Let's see briefly about the ball milling. You can see in the picture the ball milling setup is shown here. In the picture, we take the material in the powder form and put it into the container, the chamber. The chamber contains a large number of balls which is rotating continuously with some frequency. So, because of the rotating balls, the material will be crushed between the balls and forms into a nanoform. Here in this case, the ball milling, we can also have new phases of the material, and the size and the shape of the nanomaterials depends on frequency of the milling, also the size and the distribution of the balls, and the temperature in the chamber, the gas environment in the chamber, and so on. There is another example for the preparing the nanomaterials is pulsar laser deposition. In this case, we have a vacuum chamber in which we can place the target bulk material. Now, we instant pulses of high intense laser onto this target. When the laser is interacting on the target, because of high power in the laser, it instantaneously melts the material and evaporates into the space in the vacuum. This process is called laser ablation. Now, the evaporated material is also called as plasma plume. Now, this plasma plume will go and deposit on the substrate and forms nanostructures. This is one type of pulsar laser deposition. It comes under bottom-up approach because the material will be evaporated and reconstructed into the crystalline structure. What are the applications of these nanomaterials? Nanomaterials has a lot of applications. Nanomaterials can enhance the efficiency of the solar cell. As you can see in the picture, if we can make the surface of the solar cell in the form of nanorods, so we can increase the surface to volume ratio by creating a columnar structure. Now, when light is inciding on the solar cell, the light will be absorbed on the surface, and also light can be absorbed on the walls of the nanostructures. And also, if at all some light is reflecting on the surface of the nanostructures, it will be reflected back into the different directions onto the other nanostructures, so that all the light which is falling on the solar cell can be absorbed, so that we can enhance the absorption efficiency of the solar cell, so thereby the conversion efficiency can be improved. Nanostructures can also be used in the drug delivery. Because of the nanostructures, we have a more surface to volume ratio. Now, if your drug is made in the form of nano, then the drug will have more surface area, so that it can interact with the surroundings easily and can have a more reacting power. And also, nanomaterials can be used in the water purification, computer chips, phosphors for the high definition TVs, low cost flat panel displays, pollution elimination processes, high energy density batteries, high power magnets, high sensitivity sensors, long lasting satellites, longer lasting medical implants. In all these areas, we can use nanomaterials. In summarizing, the nanomaterial means any material whose dimensions are in between 1 to 100 nanometers, at least in one dimension. These materials are called as nanomaterials. When the material is in the nanoform, it will have a completely different properties compared to its bulk property. The principles behind the nanomaterials are surface to volume ratio and quantum confinement. Nanomaterials can be prepared by using top-down approach and bottom approach. Thank you.